I'm in the back of a car in San Francisco. There's no one at the wheel. Just a few years ago, this was controversial. Now, it's everywhere in San Francisco. Being a driver used to be a decent job in America. But here in the Bay Area, over the next decade, it might not be one.
Waymo has driven more than 100 million miles without a fatality.
Driverless cars don't drive drunk and they don't drive distracted.
Waymo says improving safety on the roads is the whole reason it exists.
Waymo is already in Phoenix, Austin, Los Angeles, Miami. But that's just the start. Millions of Americans drive for a living. What happens when the second richest company in the world wants to make them irrelevant?
It's going to be just a hole in the bottom of a bucket of a local economy. Just suddenly money just leaves the city in that Waymo.
Drivers saw a preview of this last decade, and they're still recovering.
He drank himself to death because he lost his pride, he lost his livelihood.
This isn't a story about whether self-driving cars are safe. This is a story about what happens to society if they are. Who wins, who loses, and why none of this is as clean or inevitable as one company wants us to think.
Yes or no, does Waymo employ humans located remotely to help its vehicles? In what countries are these employees located?
The Philippines.
So I think that's right about here. I wanted to hear directly from someone impacted firsthand by Waymo's launch, a driver.
It's right there.
Alejandra agreed to meet me in a Waymo. Unlock. There you go. We're headed to an office building where a ruling changed her life.
10 years ago, I wake up, get ready with my kids, drop in the school, work for 6 hours, coming back to pick up my kids, go home, cook, clean, and working for 2 more hours, and that's it. And I take Saturdays and Sundays off.
That life was built on a hidden subsidy. Rideshare companies had great apps. They also had venture capital, billions of it. That let Uber and Lyft lose money on every ride until the taxis were gone.
Normally, in the past, if I get a trip in the city for more than 20 minutes, probably they're paying me $30. But now they're paying me $8, $6, or $12.
After they cornered the market, Uber and Lyft have been squeezing wages down ever since. Now the over 1,000 Waymos in the area are pushing wages down to the bottom.
Right now, I'm working 12 hours a day. It's a little bit sad because I don't have time for my kids.
In some ways, this has always been Silicon Valley's goal in the taxi industry. Human drivers were a placeholder, the cheapest way to hold the market until self-driving technology caught up.
Google's doing the driverless thing.
Yeah.
Tesla's doing the driverless thing. Apple's doing the driverless thing. So the question for a tech company is, do you want to be part of the future, or do you want to resist the future?
A who's who of corporations chased it. Most quit. One pulled ahead.
Waymo.
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 Waymo. Welcome, Waymo.
A subsidiary of Alphabet or Google. The parent company bet an estimated $30 billion on the technology.
So this is where it all went down, huh? Where it was all decided?
Yeah.
In 2023, the California Public Utilities Commission voted on whether Waymo and a competitor could expand without drivers. People showed up.
Are you on the side of greedy tech companies and their profits and robots, or are you on the side of human beings? We urge you to vote no.
Others, often funded by the self-driving industry, had an answer.
Waymo and Cruise's technology, policies, and procedures have successfully demonstrated a commitment to passenger safety by meeting the Passenger Safety Plan minimum requirements.
The vote is 3-1. The item passed. The motion passes.
People who drive for a living lost. Alejandra lost. After the vote, Waymo expanded from a little over 10,000 trips a week to over 450,000. And in every city, the argument that won over regulators was the same.
It's actually been determined that the Waymo driver is 5 times safer than a human driver.
They say Waymo is involved in 5 times fewer,
11 times fewer serious
injury
injury collisions compared to human
drivers.
Autonomous technologies never drive drunk. Autonomous technologies, they don't text while driving. They don't change the radio station.
All the concerns raised here are legitimate concerns.
That's Declan Cullen. He's a professor who spent a decade studying how technology platforms reshape society.
You have danger versus safety, right? And when you get caught in that kind of choice, there's only one real answer.
It's not the first time a technology company has won that way. I asked Declan what Lyft and Uber did to expand so quickly.
The technologies were very much framed as apolitical.
What they like about it is complete flexibility, whether you're full-time or part-time.
I think that has really been the true innovation of these companies, has been to change the way we think about the question of work more generally. And so if we think about the rollout of AVs, we'd have to really consider very basic questions of like, you know, where they will operate, who owns them, who has oversight of them, how they'll be introduced.
Nowhere are those questions more live than New York, the city with the most taxi and rideshare drivers in the country.
For Americans that are concerned about job loss, about economic stability, we are on the front line of this fight today.
Bedevi Desai is the president of the New York City Taxi Worker Alliance.
A corporation that wants to make its profits from taxi and for hire work cannot avoid New York City. This is the jewel. Drivers collectively serve close to 1 million people every single day.
The fight is not new. New York City built the taxi industry around a metal plate, medallions. They gave the industry structure. The city set the price, capped the number. They became worth enough that people built lives around them.
Buying a medallion is like buying your own little storefront. People could make themselves into upper middle class, have a house, send their kids to school.
Like his dad before, Kuber Sancho Perside is a New York City cab driver. Then Uber and Lyft arrived. You know the drill. Medallions became worthless. Some drivers were left with over $1 million of debt.
This is huge. I mean, what did you just do to the value of a medallion in New York City?
And so Uber drivers were earning below the poverty wage, and so were the yellow cab drivers. In 2018, we had 9 drivers take their life by suicide.
9 drivers. That's what made the news.
There's like drivers like my dad who just didn't commit suicide, but he drank himself to death because he lost his pride.
That was less than 10 years ago. Now Waymo wants in, and their business may be able to do what Uber only dreamed about. Uber cut wages, Waymo cuts the worker.
Transit has always been a local job, necessarily. This is the first time when it's possible to not have that be the case.
That has massive implications. For-hire driving is a multi-billion-dollar industry. In New York, around 100,000 people drive for a living. Across the country, it's over 1 million. That money moves through the system: rent, groceries, taxes, schools. There's a future where it doesn't.
It's going to be just a hole in the bottom of a bucket of a local economy. You know, just suddenly money just leaves the city in that Waymo.
We've seen this before. Watch the work leave overnight. They even gave it a name. Made it sound inevitable.
The era of globalization had begun.
You know what those towns look like now? A recent MIT study found that workers in outsourced communities didn't just lose jobs. Their lifespans shortened.
They don't care if we think these services are good or bad. They just want us to think that they're the future.
Buckle up, driverless vehicles are coming to New York City.
I was like, oh boy, they're gonna try to force it down our throats again.
They create an aura of inevitability. Uber had done the same.
Meanwhile, the self-driving car industry spent $2.3 million lobbying California regulators alone. At the California Public Utilities Commission, the line between regulator and industry disappeared.
One Waymo lobbyist was a former CPUC commissioner. One current commissioner was previously employed by Cruise and refused to recuse himself.
In New York State, Waymo alone spent over $3 million lobbying politicians.
If we are going to authorize autonomous vehicles in New York State, it has to be about safety.
The governor was set to follow.
Governor Hochul said just last month that autonomous vehicles would make New York's roads safer.
It was a Waymo bill. You know, it's not even an AV bill, it's a Waymo bill. Carte blanche for one corporation.
Drivers organized. The political cost became real.
Governor Hochul is dropping a proposal that would have allowed commercial robo-taxi services outside the city.
They understand we don't have a fallback plan for what happens to working people. What happens to the drivers?
That was just one battle. We're in the wars. That war never finishes.
The next battle was March 31st, where Waymo's New York City testing permit was up for renewal. The mayor let it expire. But as cities push back, Waymo is already plotting a way around them.
I don't think you can lead globally if it's a framework that's governed by multiple jurisdictions. It's a way to slow down the adoption of this technology, not only in the US, but in other markets.
These companies have been very successful at bypassing legislation. So if a city passes legislation that limits or that proposes certain controls, they can move up a level.
This is part of the artificial intelligence industry's broader strategy.
President Trump signed an executive order restricting states from creating their own regulations for artificial intelligence.
This winter, the self-driving cars debate went federal. And when senators got Waymo's executives in a room, they found out every car has someone watching it. The question was, where?
We have some in the US and some abroad.
What percent are abroad?
Senator, I don't have that number for you.
In what countries are these employees located?
The Philippines.
That is completely unacceptable.
Offshoring our jobs just for that, just the convenience to pay them cheaply is just really sad.
This is not a conversation the industry wants to have. So they changed the subject.
Choice A means seizing the moment for American leadership on autonomous vehicles. Then there is choice B, under which we reject this opportunity. China becomes the global leader. Members of the committee, I implore you to choose choice A.
It's A, America dominates AVs, or it's B, China. And I think there's C, D, E, F, G.
I think it's more should be a hybrid system where we'll still be drivers in the cars, still drivers in the trucks, but we use the AI to help us drive better.
There are other ideas. A cut of the profits back to workers, a tax on every ride, driver-owned investment funds, local government as a concept would suggest locals get a voice in this.
A worker-centered rollout would look very different. It would be slower, it would be more deliberate, it would involve much more political decisions about how the technology works and who it works for. We could think about lots of different policy approaches that emphasize introducing these technologies to benefit not just the public at large, but to kind of help drivers transition to new kinds of work.
But the people deciding the future of this industry don't answer to drivers or cities or riders.
All of us are under the same existential threat of losing our jobs. What happens to us is going to happen to all the workers behind us, whether they are other low-wage workers, predominantly immigrant workforces, or white-collar workers. We've been on the front lines of the fight against the gig economy. We're now on the front lines of the fight against AI. This is an AI fight, but it's framed as a AV or autonomous vehicle fight. And I think part of that is messaging to separate us from the AI fight.
That's by design.
The private company has no other real end goal other than to create shareholder value. They're not really beholden to anybody, right, other than shareholders.
If you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. And if you have ideas for future investigations, please leave them in the comments.